channel John Domenico.
We're ready to educate people.
It's about the good, the bad, and the ugly. No bullshit. The real deal.
3, 2, 1. Hey guys, it's Sam here. We're back with another episode of The Real Deal.
I'm Nick.
I'm Naz.
And I'm Lucas.
And we have Lucas here from LCF Consulting, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself and his new business venture.
Thanks for coming on, Lucas.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So, Lucas, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Your new venture,
Your new
what
venture.
you're working on. We want to know it all.
Sounds good. So my name's Lucas. I'm initially from the Vaughan area, but I went out to Brock University for my undergrad. I played volleyball during my time there. I did an undergrad in sport management. After that, I took some time, and then I went to Western University, where I did a master's of sport management and leadership, really focusing on emotional intelligence during my time there and LGBTQ issues within sport. My main focus was my major paper, and it was how to develop emotional intelligence within sport leaders and leaders in general. And from there, I kind of led my way into LCF by taking that paper and creating a business around it.
Very smart and inspiring. So given all your experience in the sports world, how has that influenced your stand in your business today?
I think the number one thing that has influenced me over my time, especially with working within the sport industry, whether it be leadership positions or within emotional intelligence, I think the number one thing has been just the vast amount of experience that I've had. I've worked with many people from different age groups and different backgrounds. So, for example, this past year I've worked with Inspire Through Sport, working with youth female tennis players, 14 to 17, on developing their leadership work experience and developing their tennis skills, but then also working in different factions in terms of, university sport and being the tournament director for the tennis championships last summer. And I think that really taught me how to work in different capacities and what the importance of understanding how each individual person works.
Deeper understanding of individuals, right?
Yeah.
So you obviously like that personal connection, but we want to know a little bit more about yourself. Give us some information on your story. Like, why did you really find a need to kind of pick at this niche and bring it to life?
So in my second year, I was in a class for organizational behavior, and everybody kept telling me, "Oh, this class is so boring. It's so dry." And those words came from the professor herself. She came up first class and said that. So she started to make some changes. And the first thing that she did was she brought in the Harvard Business Review books on emotional intelligence. And there was 5 books, and I think she got through maybe 2 of them. And the first 2 were on mindfulness and resilience. And at that point, I thought that was the greatest thing ever. And I said to myself, I was like, wow, I really got to read more on this thing. And basically from there, I just went on this journey of, self-help and self-development. And it really stemmed from those books itself. And all of a sudden, my personal relationships got better. My professional relationships got better. I understood nuances within the workplace, at a higher level and a better degree. And I just said to myself, I was like, wait, if this is, what helped me, and this really feels like a golden key of some sort, how can I do this for other people? Mm-hmm. So I think from there, I kind of just went forward and said, you know what, when I go into my master's, I'm really going to focus on this emotional intelligence and really see how I can expand it and, basically take it for myself and then give it to other people.
So just to backtrack a little bit, in terms of your mission and your objective here is to help leaders in all industries develop or get a better understanding of emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. So for all our listeners and viewers out there who don't really understand what emotional intelligence is, can you just a brief description?
Of course. So emotional intelligence is the ability to interpret and decipher your own emotions and others' emotions within a multitude of complex situations. And basically, it's a decision-making process model that helps you decide what to do and why you are doing those things.
And how are you going to be facilitating that? Like, me as a person who wants to learn from you, maybe you can give us a little bit of insight of how we can work with you on that level.
Yeah. So LCF really offers a few things. One of the first things, I'm assuming that's the
I want to know what you offer, your brand. Tell us about how we can learn more about emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So within LCF, we have a few options. We offer seminars, we offer courses, And we also offer certifications. A brief overview of LCF, it is a professional development consulting firm that really focuses on leadership development. So we're not really focused on the everybody approach. We're really focused on leaders themselves. So whether that's starting out, whether that's mid-management or all the way up to executive, we really want to focus on leaders themselves. From there, we focus on doing that through emotional intelligence itself. And like I said, it's just the ability to basically make decisions within complex situations pertaining to yourself and others. So we do that through our seminars, courses, and certifications. Within the seminars, we offer two various styles. The first style is for people who are really new to emotional intelligence. That's more of a broad, more encompassing understanding. And then we offer a 3-seminar approach, which is for people who have an understanding of emotional intelligence and really want to, expand that knowledge. The main thing with LCF is that we also offer a course as well. Mm-hmm. So if people want to do a more individual approach and they really are, say, in between jobs, they really want to improve themselves within the workforce, we offer that course that allows them to get that personal development they need on an individual level. The seminars are more tailored towards groups of people, so whether that's a small business or a bunch of people within a workplace. And then the courses, like I said, is more individual. The courses are 6 weeks long. You get, like I said, the more in-depth look at things, and you're also leaving with your own individual personal development plan for emotional intelligence. That's tailored towards your needs and your goals in your own timeline. So it's not like LCF comes in and says, hey, you need to have this done by this time, and this is what we're doing.
Study, yeah.
Yeah, but the main thing here is people. We want to give leaders the opportunity to develop their emotional intelligence on their timeline and within their needs. So we offer a few options there. And the last one is just a certification of emotional intelligence. So we have a small little testing course that you have to do. And then once you pass that, you get your certification. So, that's really more tailored towards people who are trying to level up or just starting out in the industry.
You know what, I think this has become really important, especially in today's day and age, just given how people's social skills have kind of, I think after COVID, and I know everyone goes to this, I feel like people's social skills have severed in a way,
Diminished,
right?
for sure.
So either through social media or through some sort of way, and I know I'm guilty of this, but I've also seen either positive or negative changes in myself because of it. But I honestly think there's a huge need for this just in the real estate marketplace for realtor to realtor, because understanding each other or just understanding someone on a general note is really important, not even on a business level, but I think on a grand scale. But I like going back to that story.
Yeah, no. I think
going back to that, like I've actually seen a huge change in Lucas. I've known Lucas for like 10 years plus now, and like the person I met years ago or even just 4 years ago is not the same today. And I honestly, it has to go back to what you're doing. And I genuinely believe in it because I see the positive changes, right? And that's why I think society as a whole would benefit from something like this. That's why I wanted to have you on today, because I think the people need to hear about this.
Well, here's the thing that I always lead off with, and the thing that really gets me going. When I was doing the research on this, there's a neuroscience side to emotional intelligence. It's not all psychology and understanding how people work. And the thing that got me was this, that the way our body and our brain perceives signals that we get, whether it's any senses, we get it through the bottom of our brain, goes through something called the limbic system, and then it hits the cerebral cortex. Now, those sound like neuroscience terms, and because they are, but here's the thing. The limbic system is where our emotions are processed. The cerebral cortex is where our rational thoughts are processed. So think about that logically for a second. Everything you've ever experienced, everything you've ever gone through, you have processed that emotionally first and then hit rationally. And the way the brain works, it's called neuroplasticity, where whatever you do, your brain continues to go on that path. So if you listen to that emotional response first from that limbic system, you're training your brain to be more emotional. If you train your brain to bypass that signal and wait for the rational side of things, you become a more rational person. That's the foundation of emotional intelligence. And even when you were touching upon the personal and the social sides, that's how emotional intelligence gets broken down. It's personal and it's social. Yeah. So if you can really understand that wow message of your brain is processing things emotionally first and then rationally, to me, I sat back at my computer and I went, this changed everything.
Changes the whole game. It's true. Yeah.
It's great. That was a great
That's a really good way of putting
yeah,
it.
to put it.
It's true. We tend to lead with emotions, and like I'm guilty of this, of course. But when there's times where it's like I stop and I focus, and I'm like, hey, look, this is gonna go the rational way. You're right. Things go in your favor 9 times out of 10, right? So totally, I've seen that in my own life. So.
And I think that goes back to what you were saying, just understanding not only everyone else but yourself as well.
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-awareness, one of the main
things in
key
your
things
course.
of
Yeah, that you're talking about,
of your
yeah.
course. But I think that in leaders these days, or even people in general, is a huge thing, and you don't see it often. And just the way people are these days, it's crazy. So kudos to you for definitely, bringing this
Bringing this to
out
light.
there,
Yeah,
bringing
bring
it
it
out
forward.
there,
Yeah.
making everyone know that this is something that people should be focusing on, and just looking after themselves in general, right?
Yeah.
So very, very cool. Very cool.
It is like a self-care course in
course.
essence, right? Like you're making yourself more mindful, more aware. You're just familiarizing yourself with normal social characteristics of life that you need to get by, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what you're doing.
But I think even to be a leader in any sort of industry, it doesn't matter what business you're in. This is like it's a key metric almost.
Yeah.
Just
Totally.
like having the knowledge within that industry.
You
this
don't
is
even
just
need to
a whole
apply to
part.
business, right?
Yeah.
You can apply to like friend scenarios, family scenarios.
Everything.
That's the
like,
best part about
you
it.
just want to take those tools and bring it with you everywhere.
Yeah, like in my eyes, emotional intelligence, I focus on, emotional intelligence and leadership, but really emotional intelligence can be taken in any capacity. Like anybody listening to this
situation.
and goes, oh, you know what, maybe I'm not a leader at work, maybe I'm just somebody who, just goes in and does my thing. Emotional intelligence is still for you. So even though I might not be able to help you with, my specific business or my specific courses or seminars, just Google it. You can look at so much information online. Now, LCF offers the simplicity of centralizing all that information for you, but at the end of the day, I just think it's huge. Like I tell everybody I know about it, and it gets to the point where they're like, okay, but I'm not in the sport industry, or I'm not in this industry, or I'm, not a leader. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It is just something
I don't think you have to even
benefit
be in any
everything.
industry. I think
No.
you can sit at home all day and just having this is like a basic social skill, and that's it. You can apply it in any situation.
Yeah.
It's just a way to live life, just being more emotionally aware and more, again, emotionally intelligent, right?
I said it earlier, and it honestly feels like a golden key. It feels like you can just go into any situation and you observe what's going on and say something, bad happens or a wrench is thrown in a plan, and you kind of just sit back and you're like, wait, I can do this. Like I can handle this, and it feels so good to know that you're equipped with these tools. Meanwhile, you look around the room and you say, the other people in the room are kind of panicking. And you're like, wait, not only do I know how to do this for myself, but like I can help other people. So it's so beneficial in my eyes, and I honestly could talk about it forever.
That's good.
Yeah.
I do have a question, actually. So you have your master's degree.
Yes.
Was your master's thesis based?
Course based.
Course based. Nice. Okay. So it's more of a question to do with people than it is to do. Well, no, it's to do with emotional intelligence. It's kind of a two-parter. So first part being, does somebody need to have a semblance of intelligence to learn emotional intelligence? Right? Are these like concepts something that somebody with like half a brain would need to grasp? Right? Or is it that it can be for anybody? I can teach it to my child. I can teach it to, somebody who's 80. Like, what's it like?
So another good thing about it, and it sounds like too good to be true because it's a one-size-fits-all answer, but emotional intelligence can be learned by anybody at any age, at any time, with any amount of intelligence. When emotional intelligence was being popularized in the 1990s, and then people and researchers kind of got onto it, there was a big talk in, okay, but is this an intelligence, and how does this differ from actual intelligence within academia? And what they found, and what the prevailing message is now, is that emotional intelligence is separate from your regular intelligence. It can be developed, and it can be developed at any time.
So second part to my question is, does the differentiation of socioeconomic status affect somebody's ability to learn emotional intelligence?
In short, yes. The long answer is it more depends.
Okay.
I would say
I
that.
guess that depends on plasticity, right? Like a brain's resilience to bounce back
Yes.
from trauma.
Yeah.
Then that goes
Right.
to say anybody's how they're raised or situation, let's say, affects their everyday being or affects their everyday life.
But
And
it does.
We have the power to change that, right?
Well, I'll say it within. Go ahead.
I was gonna say yes and no. I
Well,
would say
yes
right
and no.
because
Like you can't change where you come from, but at the end of the day, you can change your future.
no,
path,
and
your
a
fate,
lot of
right?
people do, right? Like if you look at people like the guy from The Pursuit of Happiness, the real guy, like he struggled and then he built something that flourished and he became very successful. So he didn't let where he came from
Bring him
disrupt where he was going.
But even his mindset in
Right,
the film,
right.
you notice that he always had the same mindset. Didn't matter
Right.
where he came from, either from poor to riches. He always kept that same
No,
humble mindset.
and I
right?
do agree. Where I think I disagree is that things are cyclical, right? So if you don't break pattern, which is very hard for people
true.
that come from difficult socioeconomic backgrounds, is it becomes cyclical. They do what their parents did as their did their parents, and
generational
so on and
influence.
so forth. So that's really my question: is learning emotional intelligence number one, feasible for people that come from disadvantaged backgrounds or hard socioeconomic backgrounds? And from that, does it have the ability to break that cycle that, we see a lot of people go through, not just here in the States, in Europe, all over the world, right?
Yeah. So the answer that I actually talked about this within my major paper in a little bit, or touched upon it a little bit. The difference between emotional intelligence in the social aspect, like when we're talking about it and when we're saying, oh, this is what humans do in the psychology side of things versus the actual neuroscience side of things, is I think where this answer lies. So on the neuroscience side of things, the same way I gave that, pathway of how your brain perceives things, there's also different areas of your brain that process trauma, emotion, all these things differently. Whether it's through trauma itself, generational, or, trauma you experience yourself, or physical, so say, you were in an accident or something happened, if certain areas of your brain are broken or damaged, you have a harder time in learning emotional intelligence or just doing those, processes differently. The social side of things is more, if my parents did X and now I'm doing X, how do I change that X to a Y? Yeah. How do I change it to something else? So that's why I say it depends, because it depends on, like, is it generational trauma where your brain is literally wired this way? Is it, physical trauma, your brain is now damaged? Or is it just, a habit that somebody has that, like, they really got to break? And now is that habit, you can break it down to so many things. Is the habit because of a trigger? Is it because, of a way that they think? Is it because of the way they think things should be? So I think it's definitely possible, but you have to recognize your limitations. You have to really, so for example, I have somebody in my life where at the end of the day, there's something that their brain is just never going to do because their brain is damaged. And when you're working with that person and developing their emotional intelligence, you have to understand those limitations, and their socioeconomical background or whatever doesn't matter in that situation.
Okay. Well,
And I
that's
think
good to
that
know.
goes hand in hand with your custom plans and your
Exactly.
strategies, right? Because everybody's situation is totally different
Yeah.
when you start with someone, right?
Well, that's the reason I bring this up, right? Is because I want people that are watching to know that no matter
Where you're from.
you're from or like what has happened, you can build the tools that are necessary to operate like a human being should operate. And part of my language, not like an asshole,
It's true.
Yeah.
right? Because at the end of the day, I think it's very important for people to have even a little bit of emotional intelligence. Like, you don't have to be the most sensitive person in the world and the most empathetic and sympathetic person, but I think at the end of the day, and to bring back real estate, Sam, if you can't walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, and I say this in something that I'm writing, is you have to know where somebody's been to know where they're going, right? And
Yes.
the only way to do that is to be empathetic towards that person, right? So you have to be aware of yourself and the things that you say, and the audience you're around. That's something I struggle with because I have a big mouth. But it is definitely important, and I can see the importance in your work for sure. For sure.
I think a thing that you touched upon that I really liked is the notion that everybody kind of needs a little bit of emotional intelligence. And that is a great starting point for everybody.
Yeah.
So now, although I'm here on behalf of LCF and talking about all these services and programs and all these things, I think the number one thing is just go out and learn emotional intelligence in whatever way you can. Emotional intelligence to me is about being genuine, and it allows you to be genuine in all your situations. Like I know when I started to learn it and develop it, I started to realize that there were certain situations that I was voluntarily putting myself in that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, not only am I uncomfortable in these situations, but that's why, say, my performance isn't, as strong, or, I feel off. I leave there and I feel better that I'm leaving than I did when I was going there. And then you learn about yourself and you learn the emotional intelligence side, and you can recognize those cues. And now it's great because I can go into situations and I feel that I have enough knowledge on the topic and enough experience with the topic now that I can go into these situations and not only recognize where I'm comfortable, but where other people are uncomfortable. And then go in even deeper and say, okay, wait, Sam, do you really want to, like mentally say, does Sam really want to be here? Okay, if Sam really wants to be here, how do we get her from level A to level B? And if she doesn't want to be here, how do we still make her experience great until she decides that this isn't for her? So it's a really big part of, the entire LCF model of it's flexible, it's for you, however it works is your way. But then also at the same point, just the personal side of things, being like, do this for yourself and do this for other people.
Definitely a self-care thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that leads us to our big question of the day, which is
Drum roll, please.
which is what makes you the real deal?
So I'll say that for LCF, what makes us the real deal is that we are the only emotional intelligence program that focuses on the what emotional intelligence is, why emotional intelligence is important, and how to develop the concept within all 4 components. Other programs, they will look at the why and the what and the why. Even if they touch upon the how, they really only talk about the personal side, so like the self-awareness and the self-management aspects of it. We focus on all 4. So we focus on self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And I think that alone makes us the real deal. I think on a personal side, what makes me the real deal is that this is everything to me. This is my, life work as of thus far.
Well, I was going to ask you one more question, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
Which we love to ask here at the F&G team, and that's what is your why? And I think you can probably answer that very well for us. So I'm going to give you the mic for that.
Very good question.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence very much is my why, and it goes back to an answer I said before. When I started to learn, about emotional intelligence and how it impacted my life, the amount of personal relationships, forget professional, forget doing, becoming a better leader. The amount of personal relationships that just improved in my life, and I felt so much more at peace with everything that was going on. I, fell in love with it. And I think the number one reason why I fell in love with it was now not only was I going to, hang out with certain people, whether it's family or friends, and I was enjoying my time there, but I was also reminiscing on those times and wanting to do it again.
Yeah.
And I think knowing that connection can be both personal and professional. I was like, wait, this is a no-brainer
mix
for
for
me.
you.
Yeah. So that is most definitely my why.
Love that response.
Yeah.
So you talked about how emotional intelligence allows you to understand why you're not comfortable if you're in a certain situation, or I guess it makes you understand why you're having the emotions you're having, and to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at people with anxiety disorders, right? People who can't leave the house, people who become like agoraphobic, I guess. Does this help them? Is this something that can help them as a tool to combat anxiety and take those necessary steps to say, okay, well, I understand why I'm feeling this way. I understand what my trigger is. This is how I move on from it, right? Is there a benefit to those people as well? Because I think even for team leaders, they might be some of the most anxious people, right? Mm-hmm. Because they have so many dependents that rely on their every move, right? So is that something that can help team leaders? Like, is this something that can reduce that anxiety? I mean, it's different for everybody because anxiety can come with like a chemical
Balance.
Imbalance.
Yeah, thank you. So I just was curious if that's something that can help.
So that's a very interesting point, and I get that question a lot every time I talk about emotional intelligence. I think I'll preface it by saying it is outside of my expertise to talk exactly on that topic. But I think within emotional intelligence itself, it does help. It's the same answer as before, where up until a certain point, we can help.
Yeah.
And while LCF might not specialize in that exact area about how emotional intelligence treats, mental health, specifically, anxiety disorders, I think the number one thing that you can do is know your triggers. So one of the know your tools, exactly.
I was gonna say it's a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it'd be the same thing for stress.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
leaders.
Stress,
It's a
yeah.
coping
Even
mechanism.
confidence, right? Like me just thinking about it would boost your confidence times 10, which in that case would help with your anxiety, your stress, and a lot of things. So.
Everybody experiences it to different degrees, right? And
Yeah.
then one of the strategies that I teach in self-management is knowing your triggers. Actually, no, sorry, that's self-awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness, yeah.
Self-awareness. It goes into self-management because you have to tie that into how you're doing things, and you got to recognize them and when to employ them, the strategies. But to me, that's like one of the foundations of self-awareness. If you can understand where your triggers are, then say you have, on a scale of 10, your anxiety is at a 2 or a 5, you can bring that down to a 1 or a 0. But if you don't know where it is, the same way we said about, the way your brain adapts to processes and adapts to the way that you do things, that 2 then turns to a 5, then turns to a 7, then turns to a 9. Within a year, you've locked yourself out of something that you can, change yourself. So I like that question. I always said that if I were to go back and do another, master's and I do a thesis route, because my route was more a major research paper than the actual thesis, I'd kind of go into that area because I'm curious to see how emotional intelligence works within, the mental health space, specifically disorders or mental illnesses. But that's the
Future. Next podcast, maybe.
Yeah. I need 2 years at least for that one.
Second master's degree.
We'll schedule something for 2 years right now.
2 years.
See you back in 2025. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, I think that was a good way to end our
Yeah, no, we
little
really
podcast.
appreciate you
sharing
you
your
coming
knowledge
on and
with us.
sharing,
I
yeah.
think you were like a fountain of knowledge. Taught us a lot today.
I think this is a very important topic for not only realtors in our industry, but
I think
but all
everybody.
industries.
I,
Yeah.
like I said, there's no this like you said, there's no limit to this in terms of age, right?
Yeah.
So this is a show for everyone. Yeah.
And just before we end it here, how can people reach you? Find out your services, availability.
Plug away. Here we go. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate taking the time. To where you can find me, phone number is the easiest way.
We'll
Nice
put
little
it down
personal
below,
touch.
Yeah. We'll make sure all your contact is below.
Yeah.
So people can find you.
Phone number is easy, 416-624-4992. You can also reach me out by email, develop.your.ei@gmail.com. And then LCF Consulting is on Instagram, and they have their own we have our own website at both the titles. So LCF Consulting, and then LCFconsulting.ca.
Perfect.
Okay, guys. Well, I think that's a wrap.
And
Thanks,
that's the real
Lucas,
deal.
again. And
Thank you,
that's the
Lucas.
real deal.
Thanks, everybody.